Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Friday's edition of Automation Hour. We are absolutely thrilled that you could join us. So as always, we'll jump through a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat of the presentation today. So first things first, we do have everybody muted. Eric, can you jump the slide forward one? There we go. There we go. Thanks. We do have the Automation Hour Trailblazer community group for you to post your questions. You can also put them in the chat widget here in GoToWebinar. We are recording, so anything Dom I say will be recorded for posterity. And we will post that to YouTube once the session concludes. But we invite you to follow us on any of our social media sites as well. So the Trailblazer community, of course, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel is where all of our past presentations will be put. So yeah, with that, Automation Hour has gone boot camp this year. So we've got a great lineup. And I think our next couple of slides has what that lineup is.
I switched it up. Maybe it's taking a second.
Sure. So we do invite you to sign up for any of those on the Automation Hour website. So hopefully our presentation will catch up here. I'm still seeing, there we go. There's our first set through June 30th. And then through the end of the year, we also have the rest of our Flow Bootcamp. So you can sign up for all of those on our website, automationhour.com/upcoming webinars. So, and of course, we can't bring this to you without the help of our sponsors. So we want to make sure that we say thank you to them as well. So first one up.
Concrete.io.
Yep, there it comes. I think we just have a little bit of a lag on here, but Concrete.io has been with us since the very beginning. I'll tell you what, Eric, I'm going to turn my camera off just because I think I'm having some bandwidth issues. So, but yes, we'd like to say thank you to Concrete.io. They've been with us since the beginning and have been a fantastic sponsor. As well, we also have two other sponsors. So Sumo Scheduler has joined us recently, and so we appreciate their support. And also Active Campaign, who helps us be able to send you all the wonderful email reminders so that you come and join our sessions. So, and as always, we're thrilled to co-host. So you have Rakesh Gupta and myself, Michelle Hansen, who are your co-hosts. And we all know you're not here to see us. You're really here for the main event, which this week is Erick Molly. So Eric, I am going to turn it over to you.
All right. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me once again in Automation Hour. These are a lot of fun to put together. Hopefully everyone can see the screen and everything's going well. I'll try to pace myself here with getting all of the screens timed just right. The good news is that we don't have a ton of slides. I'm not a big proponent of massive PowerPoint presentations, and we'll keep the substance in the conversation itself for the most part. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric. I'm the Senior Director of CRM at First Advantage. I have been in the ecosystem for, 2010, 13 years now. I have 16 certifications. And I am passionate about efficiency. We track efficiencies and how much time we're saving at First Advantage and how much productivity we're helping to bring organizations, or our organization in this case. Since I've joined, we managed to save over 12,000 hours and counting. And I've been a presenter several times at multiple Dreamy events. If you have been to a Dreamy event, I might have run across you. If you haven't, I will try to go as many Dreamy events as I can this year. So I would love to connect with you. If you haven't checked out a Dreamy event or you don't know what a Dreamy event is, take a note down and see if you can find your local one to attend. It is a ton of fun. It is an awesome place to learn so much and meet awesome trailblazers from all across the world. Another thing as well, and both Rakesh and Michelle are collaborators in this, we will be hosting FlowFest Since the talk here is Automation Hour, we in February 22nd will be hosting our fourth, or as we call it, V4. It's going to be February 22nd at 12 p.m. US Eastern. If you're interested in watching or competing, it's free for both competition and spectators. Register today at www.flowfest.fans and watch folks from around the world compete. We are, what, a week and a half away, and we have about, I think we just passed 1,000 people register mark. So it's really exciting. And if anyone's playing around with the QR code, if anyone has tried it so far, that's my LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me. I'm also always posting some content on flows or efficiencies or all of that fun stuff, or just random memes that I find hysterically funny on Fridays. So feel free to use that. I think I'll display it once or twice throughout the presentation as well. So what's cooking for today? Today's an interesting one. The topic here is how to identify opportunities for automation. So the big takeaways here is that we're going to talk about identifying opportunities by the impacts that the automation you're looking to implement would bring. And then we're also going to assess it by effort. And then more importantly, we're going to understand when you should automate, because there's not always the case that you should automate, even if you can or you believe it's possible. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of making that decision of how you should automate. And then also discover a fun way to get started. If you're looking for ways to bring automation into your organization and get others involved, the departments that you're going to be automating for, then here's a great way to, we're going to talk about a great exercise that will allow you to get different departments involved and help build this little roadmap of automation, taking everything we're talking about into consideration. Now, I don't know if there is reactions here, but I am a big fan of reactions, comments, questions. Feel free to send comments and questions and everything. I am more than happy to answer all of that. And if we don't get a chance, again, the QR code is there. You can follow me on my profile on LinkedIn, and we can kind of go at it from there. But let's have a conversation starting off with impact, discovering impact. So the importance of automation is clear, right? We want to save time, we want to bring efficiencies, and however, how do you find those opportunities in the organization? And that's one of the key things. So on the left-hand side, this is actually a First Advantage, this is a sandbox dashboard, but this is an example of how we measure things in our organization. So for us, we're trying to look at what kind of impact are we going to bring to individuals if we make certain implementations. And fortunately for us, and it's been an effort over the past 7 months or so, but we've been working on building a culture to help folks identify and help document the impact that their requests will bring. So we use cases. We have a record type for ourselves that we call improvement requests in our own Salesforce. We have ways to create these improvement requests everywhere. Like, I mean, we have flows on screen flows hidden under a tab in opportunities and accounts, many different places they could launch a screen flow to submit feedback to us. It's just a large open text area, and they can basically send us whatever is on their mind. And in the screen flow, we even tie the record that they're on, if it's possible, like we'll pass that record variable, so that way we know what they were looking at when they sent us that feedback. But regardless, right, we even have email to case on it. They could email us at an internal email address, and that will generate an improvement request ticket for us. We make it as easy as possible for them to share and take time out of their day to be able to share information with us. And one of the things that we have is that as we're under sales operations at first, the Salesforce team is under sales operations at First Advantage, our actual metrics in success for our department are efficiencies. So we came up with a very simple formula that is the number of full-time employees, and if you have a part-time employee, we'll count it as 0.5. Then the frequency that a particular task is happening, and how much time that task takes to be completed for every given time you have to do that task. So the easy example I have here is that if you have 40 full-time employees, let's just call it a sales team, and once a week they had to put all their sales activities in a spreadsheet to send to their sales managers so they can show all the work they've been doing. If you're able to put a dashboard together that reflects all of that information, then technically you're saving 1,040 hours every year, right? So, because that compounds, right? It's 1,040 hours that you continuously deliver an improvement on. Another great method that I really enjoy, and I've heard this at a podcast, and Michelle was actually immediately was able to pinpoint because I couldn't remember the exact acronym. So it's Mike Gerholdt from the Salesforce Admin podcast, big evangelist in the Trailblazer community. She talks about SABWA, which is Salesforce Admin by walking around, and that's another key piece that makes a massive difference when it comes to identifying opportunities, because a lot of times you don't see, right, when you're sitting at your desk, when you're sitting at your home, if you're working remote, you don't get to see what the folks are doing and how they're using Salesforce. But sometimes they'll be on a demo with you, or that you'll be on Zoom with them, or they're showing you how they're doing something, and you're like, man, why are you doing it this way? There's such an easy way. And if you get the opportunity to do that, whether it's by a Zoom training, whether you're already back in the office and you're walking around, it's a great opportunity to observe how they do things. Say, show me how you put an opportunity in the system. How do you add a product to an opportunity? Whatever the case may be, to be able to understand, right, and say, man, I could simplify this. I could probably find a way or two to help save you a couple of clicks, prevent you from having to click in different places, and really be able to start identifying opportunities, right, that would help bring a big impact. Now, how does this all come together? We have to measure impact in some way. So on the impact level, one of the things that we consider is how big of an impact we're going to be or we're going to make. So at First Advantage, one of the great things is with our fancy little formula, we can actually help prioritize these projects based on how big of an impact we're going to deliver. So those are some of the ways they can that, you know, at first they didn't care so much, you know, about filling this out, or they didn't fully understand what they were doing, the sales folks, the customer success, the customer care folks. But I would just come back to them and be like, look, my department is measured on efficiencies. You want me to prioritize your project? You have an ask, you're asking me for something, right? Tell me, help me fill this out. Help me understand how this is going to affect you, the team, you know, and it only takes a couple of minutes. And soon enough, people really started getting behind this, right? As we started delivering a couple of solutions, people started collaborating a lot more, and we start getting a lot more of an open feedback loop for people to help us understand where impact will be. So that way it's not a one-sided effort for you to always have to be reaching out to see how can I help you. It's them actually providing that to you. So one of the key things going back to it is that when it comes to discovering impact, try to make as easy as possible, right, for them to provide you feedback and build that culture of providing feedback. So again, from our side, we have global actions to create an improvement request. We have screen flows that will pass through the record variables. They don't even have to do anything. All they have to do is just type in whatever is on their mind, and we'll be able to tag that to a record. We have the email to case, so they can just email to us what they were thinking, or forward us an email, whatever the case may be. And then even which maybe this is an opportunity to fix automation, but you know, when a flow error occurs and everything, we also have like a subflow for handling errors, that they get a nice message instead of the big red text that anyone that has put together ScreenFlow is surely familiar with. But it just gives them a better error handling experience. While we get the email notification, we can jump in and try to tackle whatever it is, right, and fix whatever automation or improve on it if we can. But impact is one part of the story. The second part is measuring the effort, right? So we have all of these different things, and anyone here that's passionate about putting flows together has probably been in the same situation that I've been, which is, I like to call it going down the rabbit flow, right? Because you start with a flow and you start with an open canvas and you just jumped on it, you didn't fully sit down or document or think it through, and you're like, I'm just gonna start building this and building this and building this. And next thing you know, you're like, no, but now I have to loop this and I have to filter this before. Oh, now we're also gonna have to get this information here. And you're just like you're just realizing this is becoming so much more of a complex situation. Or at least I've been there a million times, right? So the big piece is understanding, what kind of effort are we gonna have to take in here? Because it could be something, right? We're talking about impact. It could be something that you have that someone's asking you for, may have a fairly decent impact, but if it's a massive lift for you to deliver, regardless of whether it's technical or not, maybe if it's within your technical skill or your team's technical ability. If you have a team of admins, but there's no dev in the team, right, and you need some help perhaps, or this flow would depend on the help of invocable actions, then those are things that you're at the edge of the limit of what you can maintain and support. So you start seeing a trend here on what you should and shouldn't automate, considering not only the impact that you're delivering, but also the kind of effort that is required. And one of the things that I like about here, I put this here, I can't take credit for it, but it doesn't have to be as precise as this is going to take 10 hours, or we're going to have to, we're going to have to sit down and have a meeting and have a conversation and figure out how long this is going to be, right? You generally have an understanding of how long this could take. And one consulting firm that works with us at First Advantage, I saw it on their spreadsheets, and they measured the effort in t-shirt sizes. And I really like that, actually, because it was like, is this a large, is this an XL, is this 2XL? And like measuring the level of effort that it would take by how big or how small a t-shirt size, which to me, I really enjoyed it because it emphasized the simplicity, right? Of let's not overcomplicate this. Like, how big do we think or don't think that this would be in a challenge? And just adjust accordingly, right? And if you haven't had a chance to fully think it through, put a best guess in there. So that way it doesn't have to precise, like this would be, precisely 10.23 hours, right? No, this is a large effort, because that way when you go compare your list of to-do lists or your possible projects that you want to automate, you can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, let's get the super difficult ones out of the way first, right? And then the second part is, as a Salesforce, as a director of CRM, as a former consultant, as a former admin, there are times that a bunch of people are going to bombard you with requests, and you're going to have an issue with potentially prioritizing. So there is a lot of benefit in measuring efforts, because even if it's a loose estimation, you can look at your to-do list with your efforts listed out and have a decent idea of what can you realistically tackle, instead of just saying, oh yeah, I'll take this, and yes, I'll take that, and getting to a point where you're perhaps overcommitted and burning out because you've gone too far without having any sort of visibility if you had gone too far until it's far too late. So those are some of the big pieces there. Now, if you haven't seen this coming, I feel like this was fairly obvious, impact and effort here. So when it comes to prioritizing which ones you're going to take, whether you should or you shouldn't automate something, look at it from a matrix perspective. So think about it, saying, hey, do we have a high impact or low impact, right? Like the high effort, low impact ones are the ones that we really want to avoid, right? So those are some of the things that are just like, we don't want to get started on this. It's just going to be too big of a climb. And if only one person or two people are going to benefit from it, is it really worth the effort here, right? We want to work on things that are going to have high impact. A lot of people being able to benefit from this, right? So, one argument I hear is like, oh yeah, but we only have like 3 or 4 VPs, and like it's only going to be 3 VPs, so that's not going to drive a ton of effort because it's 3 people. Well, but are you building something that affects the VPs And does it help also everyone that reports to them? Going back to the example of submitting your Excel spreadsheets with your activities, right? Different departments can have different benefits. And if one task can impact multiple departments, you want to take that into consideration as well. So the biggest ones that we're going to talk about is that if obviously you have your high impact, high effort ones, those are your major projects. You want to take your time to carefully consider automating that. Not something you can deliver right away on a quick sprint. You probably want to break that down into a lot of pieces. But most importantly, what I actually want to focus on and give you a heads up or two are these two. The low impact, high impact, but overall low effort opportunities. So there's a time and a place for everything, right? And if you're in the situation that you're just starting out, or you're in an organization or a role that using Salesforce may be getting people to give feedback on how to better use Salesforce, or what you should prioritize, what would drive the biggest difference for them, because ultimately the end user is our customer, right, as Salesforce admins, or even a client. If you're in the consulting side, if you're trying to work with a client, the client's just like, yeah, no, I just want Salesforce to kind of work for us, or maybe they did an implementation, they're bringing you in and they're upset with how their implementation is, and you need to find a way to quickly build trust and start that loop of feedback and saying, oh, okay, find those quick wins, find those things that are low effort, right? And you can deliver quickly and start getting, right, some pocket change in terms of how they trust you and how this process works. So that way they start feeling more comfortable and sharing more, right? Instead of trying to tackle a major project all on its own. So, it kind of begs the question, right? Should you automate it at the end of the day? Because my favorite quote, actually, I was on the admin podcast this week, or the episode came out this week, and I've said this all the time. The Uncle Ben quote is my favorite quote in the world. With great power comes great responsibility. And the purpose behind it is that, flows can do so much. If we're really thinking about it, flows can do, just about most of the tasks that we're thinking, especially if they're backed up by Apex actions like the unofficial Salesforce add-ons and some of the components that you can find on the App Exchange. There's really a lot of things that we can do here. But should you, right? Just because you're capable, or the functionality is capable of doing it, is it really worth the effort? Do you fully understand what you're going to be building from a perspective of how the flow is going to look like? So if you don't, you may run the risk into going down the rabbit flow. If you're looking at from a perspective of are you technically capable, or is it going to enough just yet? I mean, I'm all for you upskilling yourself and learning how to become a master at flow, but perhaps that comes at your own time, in learning and taking your projects in a sandbox, in a dev org. You may have deliverables that you need to focus on to be able to deliver something at your organization. Do you really want to tackle something that may be beyond your reach, right, before you're comfortable, you have a chance to play around with it in a sandbox, or at your own time to learn a particular skill, if you know that building that flow would require it for this real life scenario that you're facing? And then ultimately, like, is it high impact enough, right? If you're going to be in that situation where it's extremely high effort and it's only going to benefit one or two people, maybe there's no reason to automate it at all. Like, if there is a manual process that's working well enough and you're not going to gain that much efficiency, it's something that's going to be pointless at the end. There are a couple of exceptions in that situation, and my direct report and I have interesting conversations with it, because if I tell them, if it's automation for the Salesforce team, things that will help us be able to do more cases, tackle more projects, yes, it only benefits a handful of us because it benefits only the Salesforce team. But ultimately, it would benefit a lot more people because we get to deliver more things if we improve how we capture requirements, if we improve how we manage our cases and our to-do lists. So, but ultimately the big thing that I picked up from my direct report is that you have to look at the big picture, right? Are we really going to be making that big of a difference? And just because we love flows and we love building flows, and at times we're finding any excuse that we can, right, to build some automation, build some full functionality, you have to take a consideration into bigger picture and answer yourself, should I, right? So with great power comes great responsibility. Just because we have the ability to build something doesn't necessarily mean that it's always prudent to do so, right? So with that said, I want to talk about an exercise here. So a lot of folks have come to me when I've done similar presentations and said, Eric, I get you, but nobody gives me any feedback. I ask, nobody sends me anything, or we have a meeting and there's just one or two things and people recommend things that are not going to be useful in the end. So let's get that out of the way and let's get you to start building a culture of people giving you great feedback. And this exercise called Start, Stop, Continue is by far the best exercise, and it's so simple. And I've done it virtually. I prefer to do it in person. It's a lot cooler to do it in person, but I've done it virtually and it works just as well. The premise is incredibly simple. What you want to do is that you want to understand from them, what should we start doing, what should we stop doing, and what is it that we are doing well today that if we were to roll out new functionality, we want to make sure we don't lose that, right? And so what should we continue to do? So the crucial piece here is that nobody wants to volunteer that out of the way, right? Maybe some guy speaks out, maybe they're embarrassed, maybe they're shy, maybe they just don't care, right? Because they're like, why am I here? I got other things to do, I got follow-ups to make. So the premise of the exercise, at least in person, is that we hand out post-it notes to everyone. And you say, hey, write what we should start doing, continue doing, and what should we stop doing? And give them 10 or 15 minutes to kind of start filling it out. And everyone's doing it in private. Nobody puts their name to it. Just write whatever it is. Start, stop, continues. Some people do multicolor post-it notes. So like one color for start, one color for stop, one color for continue. Some people just say, hey, right at the top, is this a start? Is this continue? Is this a stop? Or tell them once they're done to go into a whiteboard, if you're doing this in a conference room, or just line up 3 columns and say, hey, everything here is for the start, everything here is for continue, and then here's for the stop. So once you're done, go here and put your starts, your continues, and your stops. And because there is a degree of confidentiality, because nobody's put their name to it, right, short of knowing the handwriting of an individual, you go and capture all the results and you start finding the common threads. You'll start seeing a lot of post-it notes, and it's happened every single time that you'll have post-it notes that have things in common, and you start joining those together. And it's the second that you start joining those together that the magic starts, because the second someone's like, oh, someone else thinks that, oh yeah, that one right there, yeah, no, that's absurd. And then someone else jumps in, and then the conversation gets going. And then, oh yeah, about this, oh yeah, while I was on this, there's also that one over there. And suddenly the whole room will come alive, right, with, oh yeah, now everybody has a problem or something that they want to improve with Salesforce. And the big piece is that you want to use that remainder of the time to have a conversation with everyone and help prioritize, right? Oh yeah, get the conversation, get everyone going, get some very basic requirements on what the challenge is or why it's a particular problem. And start lining them up and prioritizing them a little bit, right? And if you're identifying, right, going back to low impact, high impact, low effort, or maybe even low impact, low effort, but something that can start to make a change, start taking those down and mentally start keeping those ready, because that way when the meeting is done, make sure to deliver on those. And it's crucial that you deliver on those. Execute fiercely and deliver on those, because then they opened up to you and dedicated an hour, especially if they're skeptical to begin with. And they're like, I put an hour of my time into this, right? For what? But if a week later or 2 weeks later to start rolling out functionality that answers their challenges, then, hey, guess what? Oh, this kind of works. Oh yeah, by the way, thank you for that. Oh yeah, hey, let's get started with this. Let's get started with that. Oh, you want to figure out how much efficiency? Yeah, let me help you with that. Yeah, fine. This is how much. And suddenly you start getting into the snowball effect of getting more feedback in and lining up the next automation. The next thing you know, they're helping you understand the impact voluntarily to drive the next big challenge, the next big changes and big challenges and everything. So with that said, blank slide. I don't know what was supposed to be here. A big thank you to everyone. This was my presentation to you guys today. I would love to see if there's questions and everything. Follow me on LinkedIn for content relating flows, efficiencies, all of this stuff. And happy to share story. Like, again, ask me anything you got with regards to whether it's from my experience, how to implement it, anything in particular with regards to flows. Let's take this time on this awesome Friday afternoon to answer some questions and hopefully see if we can, walk away with learning a thing or two. So, Michelle, I don't know if you want to come back or how we want to do this.
Oh yeah, we have questions.
We have questions. I
We
love
do
this.
indeed.
All right.
All right. So first question comes from Salvatore. So he's familiarizing himself with flows, and so as he gets the fundamentals, are there any suggested websites that he can use to challenge himself by building solutions with flow?
I mean, Trailhead is a great one, but I can't avoid the bias. I have to tell you, we have FlowFest coming up, where we're putting together challenges and flows for folks to be able to become familiar. And even though it's a competition, after the event, we share all of the exercises so that way people can understand. Sometimes we walk through during FlowFest itself while the competition's going on, we'll walk through some of the problems, the challenges and everything and help teach. But that's one of the ways. But equally, there's a lot of great content out there from a lot of flow influencers. I mean, there's Automation Hour that has a lot of great content, but there's Andy Yudkin, who has a fantastic course. There's Daryl Moon. There is Yumi Ibrahimzad. He was the first FlowFest champion. He's got a blog. I think it's Salesforce Time. There's so much great content out there where they have YouTube channels as well, and they'll walk you step by step, right, on how to do things. Michelle, I don't know if your hands-on training session from Ned is available anywhere, but that would be another great one. I mean, the level of documentation that you have on that hands-on exercise, it's like a 50-page document with step-by-step of like priceless stuff. And like using all the latest stuff. I mean, at the time, latest for Ned 23, which is a year ago, but like we were talking about collection filters and like some really great use case, like real life use cases that were very interesting as well.
Yep, absolutely. So I summarized all that and sent that back to Sal. So yeah, absolutely. Incidentally, I just got a LinkedIn request from somebody, Eric, who was looking for FlowFest for V2 and V3 exercises. So I thought that was very timely. So Dylan had asked at the beginning, which you partially answered, but I'd like kind of have more of a deep conversation about it. He's curious about the strategies you use to track the automation efficiency, and specifically, how do you track items that are time-based?
So the formula is the key piece here, but I'll actually add one thing that people also ask, and it's something we're seriously considering, and I'm genuinely thinking about putting like an unmanaged package for folks with this that want to get started. But the formula that we use, like I said, it's number of people affected, right? The full-time employees, the number of times a task is done in a week, and how many minutes that task takes. And let's not overcomplicate it. If someone's like, oh, we measure it in hours, great, divided by 60, tell me what it is, right? Like, don't overthink this, right? So it's literally as simple as that. The one thing, and we use that math, right, that multiplication to help prioritize and understand the impact that it's going to deliver. the one thing that we want to start doing, and I was talking to my direct report, he liked the idea, and at some point we'll put it in, is that we're going to add a fourth item to that math, which is a dollar amount. So in this case, the average salary, right, or the average cost per hour of the folks. So if we want to convert that into a financial gain, right? Yeah, we're saving 1,000 hours, but how much is that? How much is that hour worth in this case? Oh yeah, average salary is, I don't know, 100 grand a year. Okay, great. So that is, what is it, 2,000 hours? That's roughly $50 an hour, right? So, and then we put that into dollar amount, because we've worked on a lot of efficiency projects that at times is tough to put an actual time gain, but there is a financial gain. So, and we wanted to make sure that we had a way to capture that as well. So, not only to answer your question, but also to kind of add in that next step, where what's coming in the future is that's probably going to be it for us.
Yep, and I actually find this interesting because recently I was on another webinar where they talked about technical debt and addressing technical debt, and part of the ways that you get buy-in for that is to track your KPIs. And so some of those KPIs are, how much time have you saved, how much waste have you eliminated, those kinds of things. And it all comes back to, time. I automated a process at a company I worked for. It took them roughly 10 minutes to do something, and I managed to reduce that to 3 minutes. So I reduced their keyboard time 70%. If they do that 20 times a year, it starts to add up. I mean, and again, it's just 7 minutes, but 7 minutes times 20 times a year, that's 2 hours times how many sales guys?
Right.
So,
and I'll add one thing. Yeah, that's really interesting. You reminded me of one thing. I'll add right now. How we measure. There's two key components. There's two key crucial points there. One, the department asking for the efficiency takes ownership of the savings. They take ownership. So, because ultimately we can build the platform, we can't make them use it. So, everyone's like, oh no, but then afterwards you have to measure if that's the case and everything. There's a conversation about measuring after the fact, but they've committed that they'll gain the efficiency and you delivered on it. Then later on, you can measure if they're using the system properly, if they're still buying in, and all of these things, and kind of go at it from there. So that's an important piece as well, that they own it, right? And it's and you're calculating the efficiencies at the time of the start of the project that they'll take ownership of. So and then the second point that you reminded me is that a lot of C-level execs, right? People that usually will sign off, like you want to talk about, oh yeah, we're going to gain this much efficiency if we get a marketing automation tool. Like that's spending money, right, to get this efficiency. Marketing execs don't, like, it's harder for them to care about we're saving this much time. You're speaking their language when you talk dollars. So that's one of the key pieces why we want to add the dollar amount to the end of this math that we use, because then we can come back and say, yeah, instead of, we saved 12,000 hours. I showed everyone on my slide. We saved 12,000 hours so far. Great, what does that matter? But if $100 an hour, oh, okay, so now we saved 1.2 million. Oh, now that makes a difference. Tell me more about this next project that you have in mind, right? So now you got to understand your audience, and you got to understand the language that you're speaking. If you want to report just on efficiencies gained for sales ops or whatever, yeah, time gained, efficiency gained, convert that into a percentage, what have you. But if you want to use that to try to leverage C-level execs or people to sign off on spend, right? More tools, better functionality, middleware, whatever, then switch it to numbers. So that way everybody can understand and you're speaking the language.
Yep, absolutely. I actually did that on my documentation session on how to get buy-in from your executive team that documentation is necessary on each project. And I said, well, if you have to retrain someone and that takes 2 weeks of your time, what's 2 weeks of your salary plus 2 weeks of everyone else's salary that you have to retrain? So, and that perked up some ears and some, oh, wait, what? Oh, I see this is important.
Yep, exactly right.
So our good buddy Mark Jones is here. Hi, Mark. And so he said, on the subject of gauging when flows are able to be supported, how do you figure that out without getting too far ahead? Like, how much of that are you able to do in discovery or the requirements gathering phase?
How much flows are able to be what?
Supported. Like, again,
Oh,
do you have the ability to support it? And I think that's actually a really
yeah,
good call out, options, opportunities for automating. Do you have the skill set to do it?
yeah,
There are people very new to Flow that if you said, well, can you build me a homegrown, pricing conversion calculator? And you'd be like, no. Like, can Flow do it? Yes, but can I do it with Flow? If that
right.
answer is no, that's a
Yeah, I
different.
mean, you want to take baby steps, right? You want to, as we are all, Salesforce geeks here, we love to dedicate our time to learn and upskill ourselves and all of these things. Where trying to take on this challenge bigger than your skill set can come and hurt you is that in business world we have deadlines, we have expectations. So if you say, yeah, I can deliver this, yeah, I know Flow can do this, we can, Flow can do this, we can do this. Oh, can you have something to me in 2 weeks? That sounds reasonable to you. You're like, sure, but you're going to be a week in, realize that you're super far behind, and you're going to be reaching out to folks in, Ohana Slack, the Trailhead community, whatever, to help you out. And the folks are there to help you out, but they're not on your timeline. Now you've committed to something, and you're in a tough spot because you're spending so much extra time trying to figure out and learn by the mistakes, which the way most of us learn. um, but on but with setting poor expectations to your peers, right? Because you committed to something and you weren't completely positive they could deliver within that time frame. So that's one of the big challenges, and that's why it's good to take it in bite-sized chunks to upskill, right? Instead of trying to take a massive leap, right? Just because it'd be nice to say, yeah, we can deliver because I'm that confident that Flow can do this.
Yep. And so I actually learned a new term when it comes to agile lately. When someone said, can you put a spike for that? And I'm like, what is a spike? And so apparently a spike is a user story that doesn't have everything fleshed out enough, but it's something that you want to be able to devote a time boxed amount of effort to. So let's say we're going to give you a 4-hour spike. So basically you have 4 hours to take and investigate this and go down the rabbit hole and see whether or not we can actually do something with it. And so you're not going to just commit to doing it and say, yeah, okay, sure, we're going to do it. And then you get yourself stuck. But you're going to say, let's put a spike in here. Give us enough time to be able to research it, determine whether or not we can get enough information to then flesh out the rest of the requirements and do it. And so I think that's where, especially if you've got maybe 80 to 90% of it in discovery, like if you understand the tools that you're going to need, the components that you're going to need to be able to do it, you probably won't have too many of those hiccups. But if there's things where you're like, okay, so I've heard Flow can do this, but I've never actually done it and I don't really know how, or maybe there's an unofficial SF component that can help, that's where instead of committing, you go, let's put a spike in for it, or let me do some research and get back to you, and you give yourself that time box to go do some research. And so it's kind of that middle between no, I can't, and yes, I absolutely will, which every consultant loves. It's, let me get back to you.
And I absolutely love that for several reasons. Because to your last point, your last sentence right there, when I was an independent consultant, I have used that line. I didn't call it a spike or anything, but I've used that line of "let me get back to you" several times to be able to confirm something before I committed to it. But and ultimately leading to the point, which is something that's very near and dear to me, which is setting the right expectations with folks, right? And I think something like a spike in agile methodology or allows you to set that expectation of, hey, we understand that there's more here than what we're currently comprehending at this meeting. Let us go back, take a better look at this so we can come and make an educated decision on how we're going to move forward. You might not need you might not have all of the answers after that spike is done, but at least you'll be able to take a better educated decision of whether it's something you can pursue, and if so, how, right? So yeah, I'm all for that. A lot of good questions so far.
Absolutely. Oh, they're still coming. We're not done. So next,
Let's do this.
Erick would like to know, what about the considered impact? How should those be treated?
In what sense? Like, how it affect others positively or negatively? Like,
Possibly. I mean, and one thing that I know you mentioned that brought to mind, so Melissa Hildy's another MVP recently did
yep.
a presentation for my user group and at a couple conferences on consequence scanning. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
one of those things where if you have an idea, it might sound like a fabulous idea, but have you really scanned the consequences to make sure that it's really as good an idea as you thought it was? And so a lot of that goes into, what are some positive unintended consequences or some negative unintended consequences,
Mm-hmm.
and can we mitigate those? So I
So
think that
that's,
also goes
yeah.
into it. But I think he popped back in and said for the matrix you showed earlier with your impact versus effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a
So
question related to that.
yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. So with regards to consequences, at least for us, like you can always hide behind hindsight, right? Some things are always going to be visible only in hindsight. So I think that when considering the effort, right, one of the big pieces is considering, is this flow going to trigger other things, right? Like that, it's not part of just what am I building, but what are we potentially affecting? Are we going to be using a flow that already exists and does another thing, something else, and we're going to build this extra functionality on top of it? Do we have to be mindful of it, right? Do we have to be mindful of record types and saying this automation only applies to a specific record type? Uh, all of those things, those consequences, it takes part into the consideration. I didn't think about it when we're putting together the slides. It didn't come to mind, but yeah, absolutely. Like when you're considering effort, the consequences that you may have are absolutely a crucial point that you got to take into consideration. And more importantly, kind of going back to your technical skill set, right? Like, do you have a good, and maybe even your seniority at the company? Do you have a good grasp of what's in the org? Are you the only person responsible for the org? Are other people working on the same org, and do you have to be worried about what they're doing, right? Are you doing something on a shared object that may impact what they're doing? So those are all things that will increase the level of effort, right, that you have to put in. And the consequences, both positive and negative, you got to take it into it and put it under the effort category.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing to think about is just, especially if you come from consulting, most of the time, a consultant's pulled in to do something because someone doesn't have the time or the expertise to do it. But I sort of feel like consultants have a little bit of that Hippocratic oath, first do no harm, leave things better than you found it. If you build them something that they have no hope of maintaining on their own, is that really a good idea? Like, can you approach it a different way that puts that down into their skill level, or at least give them the tools, teach them along the way so they can build the skill set to maintain it.
That's
Yeah,
that's a fun topic. That is a fun topic because it can get complicated very fast. Because especially if you're on the consulting side, do you have the budget to document? Because how many customers want to pay for the budget on the lower end of the scale, or want to pay for the documentation on the lower end of the scale, right? So while I completely agree with you, the real life scenarios tend to put that, that good intent to the test really badly. What I will say is this: there are a lot of things that Salesforce are doing that I am personally very happy that keeps inspiring you or instigating you. Like the new functionality, it's as little as it is. The new functionality in Spring 23, with the fact that the documentation or the description is a hover over to the side of the element, like it changes everything. Like I've always been a massive proponent of, like I do it right now. Like you could go any org that I own, all of my flows have descriptions on the flow. So that way, if you're on the flow list views, you know exactly what the flows do at a conceptual level. That's always been there. I've always said to people, make at least the minimum effort for that. But now that the description will populate as a hover over on the canvas, that opens a whole new ballgame because you can put things in there. Usually I put notes in the elements. If I hard coded something in, like I used to put asterisks on the flow label for the elements. So like if that element has like a hard-coded ID, I always put asterisk, like something to call my attention to it to say, hey, something's off here, right? And then I'll put the description in there. Like those are things that you're already there. Like, you know, like especially if you're like, I'm having to do this because of this XYZ problem, because as soon as I debugged, I realized that this wasn't going to work this way and I had to put this in a filter or whatever have you. You're already there. Explain why, right? Take that inner frustration of yourself that the debug didn't work when you tried and just put it there. Like, this didn't work because of this. For the love of God, don't take this away, you know, and go from there.
100%. So
Yeah.
Diane, this is a great question. I'm thrilled you asked this. So Diane wants to know, Eric, do you have an intake template for requests that will help you gather requirements to ensure you understand the requirements and you get all the information that you need to ensure success? And I have a follow-up answer when you're done.
Ooh, okay, so the short answer is yes, I do. Now, from my days, because my background is sales and marketing, and the best landing pages are the ones that collect the least amount of information. If you have a landing page with 50 fields, people will never fill out your contact us form. So what does that mean? The best challenge that I found, or the best way that I found, was that keep the form simple. And like in our case, it's just a open text, just as simple as that, or same thing with us, email to case and everything. We do have the questions that we want to get. What we do is that as soon as they create the improvement request ticket, we send an email, an automated response, say, hey, thanks for filling this out. While we get a chance to review this, can you click this link and fill out some extra information so that way we can come to you better prepared? And it kind of like dismantles the, oh my God, I have to put all of this information. But at the same time, it kind of two-steps it. And what we do is that we take them to a screen flow, right? That we have, the link takes them to a screen flow. And there we have all of the extra information that we want to capture. And there we ask like how many people do you think this will impact? How many, you know, like, then we ask all the questions. And it's an interesting way to disarm, because maybe in some way they're already mentally committed to the ticket and they see you're getting ready for it. So, you know, like, and in the message, in the auto response, we say, hey, we want to come better prepared, right? So you will probably have questions, Diane, that are specific to you or into your use case. So I'm not sure if I can say, use my template, this will be perfect. But, you know, ultimately, it's, if you have to capture a lot of information, that is my recommendation. So you can get a lot of it up front and you can really come prepared when it comes time to have a call with them and better understand what they're asking for. So what's your follow-up, Michelle?
So my follow-up, and I will have to go retry and find this, but once upon a time early in my admin career, I ran across a zip file where Steve Moe had put together about 8 to 10 templates for anything that you could request in Salesforce. Oh, you want a new report? Great. Here's your template for that. Oh, you need a new validation rule? Here's the set of questions I need for this. Oh, you need a new automation? Here's what I need to know to be able to deliver that for you. So in my smart brain, I did save a copy of all of those somewhere. I just have to find them because I've changed jobs a couple of times. And so I've moved things around and made sure I had a personal copy, as well as left one for the company I was working with. But if I can find that, or if anybody else can Google for Steve Moe's request templates, they do exist.
Or in today's world,
I probably just need a couple breweries as thanks for that.
Or in today's world, anybody that has ChatGPT open, please ask them to write an email prompt written as Steve Moe, telling them to ask questions about verification and see what ChatGPT can come up with. And then try to see it, like, confirm that ChatGPT puts in the Boston accent in the writing of the email.
Yep.
You know.
Absolutely. All right, so Mark, I love it when he tells me this stuff. He chimes in. He said, so on the tracking side of things, and I love this idea, he's playing with the idea of building an app that will track how many times every flow is run. So he's trying to figure out how to capture all of the details of the flow interview so that you can actually determine how many times an automation has run, and you can use that to bolster your case for what sort of efficiency you have and how much, you know, engagement and buy-in you have for building this. I think there's some metrics on flow interviews on the automation homepage.
I think there's
And
that, and I think you can even run reports. I think, wasn't there a recent release? I think it might have been on screen flows only, but I think there are actual report types, or there was something on a release recently that I felt like you could measure the length of screen flows, not, I don't think it applied to like record trigger or auto launch, but yeah, I look, there's a lot of ways to measure, out there. The only thing that I just be careful with is that you want to make sure that you want to do something that's scalable in your app, right? So find a way to measure it in a way that that you can genuinely say, look, I can toss this measuring subflow or whatever, however your app's going to be built, on any use case and be able to report evenly across the board on that, right? So that's the only thing you'd probably have to be mindful, but sounds like a good idea. I'd love to try that out.
yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, and on the topic of documentation, standardized templates as a consultant can definitely help if you can plug information in. But you're right, it's always a question of budget for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then I have one last question, and that's great because we're 3 minutes left in the hour. Eric, what is FlowFest?
Oh, yes, we saved the best for last. So FlowFest is a global competition for where we live stream a set of challenges and we watch competitors go at it while we make a couple of presentations. So in the past couple of years, we've had presentations on release readiness and all of these things as we're checking in the dashboard. So as everyone is competing, all the competitors, we have a dashboard and the spectators get to see who's in the lead. We show by countries, we show by companies. So you can register to support any country or any company of your choice. And this year this event, because we're gonna do 3 FlowFest this event, we're gonna start lining them up with the releases. This event, we're gonna try the head-to-head. So that's gonna be exciting because before, all of the challenges, they were working in the background and we just had this dashboard of who was in the lead and who was not in the lead. And we would do sessions where at times we'd walk through the challenges, explain what the challenges are based on and so forth as the competitors were running through it. But this time, we're going to do a qualifier round live, right? Like as the competition is going, the first half is going to be this qualifier round. The first 4 to successfully complete the qualifier round will come live into the stream and will be sharing their screens so we can jump in and live watch like what they're doing and like commentate and be able to see how people tackle this challenge in different ways, kind of see the different ways that people go about resolving it, who's on the right path, like try to highlight some best practices and see who can become the FlowFest champion for the 4th event. So we're super excited. We're at the point that we're wrapping up the challenges themselves. We'll probably be picking the competitors. So if you're interested in competing, there's still room. Go to www.flowfest.fans. It's all built on Salesforce. All of your submissions get sent to our org. And then, yeah, we'll hopefully be able to see you there. And even if you're not interested to compete, register to spectate because your support helps get attention from companies like Salesforce. So the Trailhead Academy gives us exam vouchers, which we use as prizes for the FlowFest winners. So it's by having the numbers, right? We're talking about what the efficiencies that get measured are the ones that get, that drive the difference that people can see. Being able to have you register helps us show Salesforce, hey, here are how many people are interested. Here's how many other folks are coming, how the change that we're making, right, by hosting this. And that keeps them engaged, right, in helping support our events. So if you're interested, either as a spectator or participant, I encourage you to register today. And we'll see you in about a week and a half there.
Awesome. So I did throw in the chat the link to not only the FlowFest page on Force Anywhere, but also flowfest.fans. So Katie says it sounds like we need FlowFest to be on the Ocho. So Katie, I think you and I need to talk more about that.
I love it. Let's do it, Cotton.
So with that, we have hit the top of the hour, so we'll let everybody go. Erick, thank you so much again for coming to present, to chat, to talk with us about this. I think it's great, like how to figure out when you should automate, can you automate, what are the best things to automate, all of the things that you really need to think about before you actually sit down and start doing the hard work, which is automating. Actually, that's the easy work comparatively.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again for being here. So appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks all. We'll see you next time.
Bye.